I don't think it's wise to stick our heads in the sand. That was the phrase. That was the gamble. That was the logic that led to the most controversial diplomatic decision in modern British history. For decades, there has been a quiet confidence in London, a belief that the special relationship is an ironclad insurance policy, a bond that ensures the United States and the United Kingdom always move as one. But as of this morning, Saturday, January 31st, 2026, that assumption has been shattered. While Prime Minister Keir Starmer was in Shanghai, raising a glass to a new era of trade with Beijing, Donald Trump Washington making it very clear that the party is over. 48 hours ago, the world watched as the president issued a warning that wasn't just a critique. It was a verdict. He called Starmer's strategy very dangerous. The White House didn't just disagree. They signalled that the United Kingdom is now on a collision course with its oldest ally. The assumption in Downing Street was simple Britain could play the sophisticated middleman, the bridge between the East and the West. Starmer thought he could secure the Chinese market without losing the American one. Well, we just saw what happened to Canada last week when they tried to play that same game. Trump didn't just issue a statement to Ottawa. He threatened a 100% blanket tariff on every single Canadian product entering the US because Prime Minister Mark Carney dared to sign a strategic partnership with Xi Jinping. Now, that same shadow is stretching across the Atlantic. The nice guy phase of diplomacy is dead. The dangerous strategy has been called out, and the American administration is already preparing to build a wall that the UK never saw coming, too. The whiskey bribe and the visa trap. To understand the panic in the corridors of Westminster right now, you have to look at the specifics of the deals Starmer just signed. He's calling them a win for working people. But in Washington, they look like a surrender. The headline of the trip was a breakthrough for Scotland's most iconic export, Scotch whisky. In a private meeting at the Great Hall of the People, China agreed to slash tariffs on Scotch from 10% to 5%. A move the government claims is worth for $250 million over the next 5 years. On the surface, it's a boost for British distilleries. But here's the reality: China is currently Scotch whisky's 10th largest market, and it's been shrinking. Last year, exports to China cratered by over 31%. By dangling this tariff cut, Beijing has effectively bought the UK's silence on much larger issues. It's a classic move, the low-cost concession, to secure a high-value geopolitical silence. And it didn't stop at whiskey. Starmer secured 30-day visa-free travel for British nationals entering China. He hailed it as symbolic of a maturing, sophisticated relationship. But look at the map of who else has this deal: France, Germany, and even Canada before the trade war started. It's a standardized Chinese package designed to lure Western business leaders into a state of dependency. Once your executives are in Shanghai, once your supply chains are integrated, you are no longer a sovereign partner. You are a stakeholder in the Chinese Communist Party stability. While Starmer was touting market access, the US perspective remains cold. In the words of the American administration, China sells nothing but cheap products and cheap friendships. The UK just bought both, and the price tag might be the very foundation of the special relationship. 3. The AstraZeneca addiction. A $10.4 billion at stake. But the real heart of the storm isn't a bottle of Macallan or a tourist visa. It's the life sciences sector. While Starmer was at the Great Hall of the People, the CEO of AstraZeneca, Sir Pascal Soriot, stood up and announced a staggering $15 billion, $10.4 billion investment in China through 2030. This isn't just a factory, it's a total integration. AstraZeneca is moving its drug discovery, its clinical development, and its high-end manufacturing of cell therapies and radioconjugates directly into Chinese soil. They are hiring 20,000 Chinese workers to build the next generation of cancer treatments. Starmer calls this wealth creation for the UK, claiming it helps the company grow at home. The White House sees it differently. They see a British crown jewel, a company that was central to the global vaccine race, handing over its most sensitive intellectual property to a rival superpower. In Washington, there is a growing movement to de-risk from China, especially in biotech. Trump has already pressured the US pharma industry to invest the $50 billion at home. Now, one of America's closest allies is doing the exact opposite. This creates a massive security hole. If British-made drugs are being developed in Chinese labs using Chinese data, can they be trusted in American hospitals? The Pentagon is already asking if this healthcare ecosystem collaboration is actually a backdoor for Chinese biosurveillance. By allowing this deal to go through, Starmer hasn't just secured jobs. He's potentially signed away the UK's seat at the table for future US, UK medical and defence research. A Five Eyes, betrayal and the burner phone reality. The most terrifying part of this sophisticated relationship isn't the trade, it's the intelligence. The UK is a core member of the Five Eyes, the most elite spy network on the planet. We share the kind of data that keeps the world from descending into chaos. But during this trip, the security precautions taken by Starmer's team revealed the true nature of the friend. They were visiting. Reports surfaced just before the trip that Chinese state-sponsored hackers had spent years inside the communications of senior Downing Street officials. Think about the irony. Starmer is claiming China is a pragmatic partner he can trust for the UK's economic future, yet his own security services are treating the country like a digital minefield. Every member of the British delegation was warned that every hotel room in Shanghai was bugged. Trump's dangerous label targets this exact hypocrisy. In Washington, the talk is no longer about whether the UK should be in the Five Eyes, but whether they can be. If London becomes an economic vassal of Beijing, the fear is that British intelligence will become a sieve for Chinese state actors. The special relationship is built on trust. And you can't have trust when one partner is carrying a burner phone because they're afraid of the other partners. Sophisticated friends. 5. The Jimmy Lai silence and the kowtow accusation every high retention story needs a moral conflict. And for the UK, that conflict is named Jimmy Lai. While Starmer was busy celebrating a political victory, the lifting of Chinese sanctions on 6 British parliamentarians, the reality on the ground in Hong Kong remained grim. Jimmy Lai, a British citizen and pro-democracy advocate, has spent 5 years in prison, much of it in solitary confinement. Starmer claims he raised difficult issues in the room, but he failed to secure Lai's release. This silence is the kowtow that the opposition is screaming about. To the critics in London and the hawks in Washington, the lifting of sanctions on those 6 MPs was a hollow gesture, a cheap friendship designed to give Starmer a win he could take home while the actual human rights abuses continue. The trade-off is clear. China gives back the travel rights of a few politicians, and in exchange, the UK provides legitimacy to a regime that is actively dismantling democracy in Hong Kong. Trump's dangerous verdict isn't just about economics, it's about the moral rot that occurs when a nation decides that a 5% cut in whiskey tariffs is worth more than the freedom of one of its own citizens. 6. The April showdown. Trump's secret motive, but here is the twist that nobody is talking about. Donald Trump is visiting China himself in April 2026. This is the hidden map behind the dangerous rhetoric. Why would Trump want to stop the UK from making deals now? Because he wants to make them himself. Trump's philosophy has always been America first. And in his world, that means the US gets the best terms, the lowest tariffs, and the most market access before anyone else. By labelling Starmer's trip as dangerous, Trump is effectively devaluing the British position. He is telling Beijing, don't bother with London, they are small, they are weak, and they are about to be hit with US tariffs. Wait for me. It's a classic squeeze play. If the UK is weakened by a trade war with the US, they have even less leverage with China. Starmer thought he was being sophisticated by engaging early, but he might have actually just front-run the world's most aggressive negotiator. If Trump goes to Beijing in April and secures a grand deal, the UK will be left holding the bag. 7. The sovereignty trap. Can the UK survive? So, where does this leave us? We are looking at a scenario where the UK is physically, economically, and strategically trapped. On one side, you have the physical reality of the North Atlantic. Our defense is tied to the US. Our technology is tied to the US. But our growth, the thing Starmer promised to deliver, is increasingly tied to the East. The dangerous strategy is the attempt to live in both worlds. But as the Canada situation showed us, the world is becoming binary. If Trump follows through and applies the Canada model to the UK, we are looking at a 100% tariff on British exports to the US. Think about the impact. British-made engines, aerospace parts, and even those AstraZeneca drugs, taxed at 100%. The UK economy wouldn't just sneeze, it would go into a coma. The irony is that the sophisticated relationship with China was supposed to provide a safety net for Brexit Britain. Instead, might have just pulled the rug out from under the special relationship. Starmer told Bloomberg he wouldn't choose between countries, but in 2026, the choice is being made for him. 8. The final domino, the end of the special relationship. This trade war isn't fully here yet, but that's almost the most dangerous part. We're in the phase where signals matter more than outcomes, where markets move before laws do, where perception becomes reality. The dominoes aren't crashing yet, but you can hear them wobbling. When markets open on Monday, the tells will be subtle but brutal if you know where to look. Watch AstraZeneca, AZN. Not just the headline price, but the volume, the analyst notes, the whispers about US regulatory pressure or sanctions risk. Farmer lives and dies on access to the American market. If investors think that door is even partially closing, panic will set in fast. Then watch Diageo DGE. Yes, the whiskey exemption made headlines. Yes, it was spun as a win. But if American tariffs loom over everything else, that win starts to look cosmetic. One product category won't save an economy if the broader trade relationship is poisoned. Markets aren't sentimental, they're forward-looking and ruthless. Most importantly, watch GBP/USD. The pound is the lie detector test for global Britain. If it starts sliding, that's the world quietly admitting what politicians won't say out loud: the UK doesn't currently have a secure economic anchor. A falling pound isn't just about inflation or interest rates. It's about confidence. And confidence, once lost, is brutal to regain. For 80 years, geography dictated Britain's fate, and that fate ran through Washington. The special relationship wasn't just cultural or emotional. It was structural: intelligence sharing, military coordination, financial integration, diplomatic cover. It was the reason Britain could punch above its weight long after empire faded. Keir Starmer just tried to redraw that map in Shanghai. He made a bet that Britain could navigate a complex and intertwined world without triggering a zero-sum response, that it could engage China economically without being seen as strategically unreliable, that America would grumble but ultimately tolerate it. Trump didn't tolerate it. He called the bluff. Now we're watching the storm clouds gather, and the uncomfortable questions are no longer academic. Is the UK actually an independent power capable of charting its own course? Or is it a medium-sized state whose influence depends entirely on which tanker it sails alongside? The "we don't need the US" movement hasn't fully materialised yet, but the label "dangerous" already has. And once that label sticks in Washington, it's hard to peel off. The next few months, especially heading into April, are not just another diplomatic cycle. They may be the most consequential stretch of British foreign policy decision-making in generations. Because in 2026, you can't sit on the fence and pretend it's a strategy. You can't bury your head in the sand and hope the tide turns. The world is asking Britain to choose. And if it chooses wrong, or refuses to choose at all, it may wake up on the wrong side of a wall it no longer has the power to climb.